Alright, welcome to another edition of GoogleIsEvil and such. DoNotGod.com video presentation. So, on the website, over there, yes, I did make one video this week. Yeah, I made it just a little while ago. Yeah, actually. But anyway, working on it. Working on doing more. It's just trying to cut out the redundancy. So the idea is really just to, do this idea pyramid thing. Just put the ideas in the right order, the ones that matter, and forget about all the rest. The stuff somebody else can do. Somebody else can prove there's no God. It's part of my job, I suppose, also. But anyway, yeah, so that was today's video. Was just so much of what you're arguing with people is just arguing past a bunch of bullshit notions of the reality. If you really look at the facts, they don't, it's not a really pleasant conversation to have about the facts, because the facts are, it's a lot of torture for a delusion of grandeur inside of a robot's head. So, it's like a Coke machine thinking it's, hey, I'm winning, I'm getting somewhere, I'm doing something, I'm making Coke, some bullshit story. And, there's a bunch of, dead and broken and disabled Coke machines in his wake. He's, paid a high price for him calling himself a winner, and that point isn't going to go away. Frankly, the future is going to have a hard problem dealing with this question of, was it worth it? Come on, was it really worth it? Was the price paid by even just the humans worth? Did all the, if you add up all the war dead, all the bodies broken and screaming in pain, have we accomplished or done something to make that a huge victory? Wow, yeah, that was a tiny price to pay. That was just a minor little fee we had to pay for this spectacular, glorious victory. And no, I don't think it's going to work out at all. I don't think anybody's ever going to be able to say anything to undo the obvious, horrendous, disgusting horror that is the truth of the price paid for the existence of this game of life. Eek. Way too expensive. So anyway, we'll play some of this video that sort of gets to some of this somewhere. I mean, it's always in there somewhere. So, yes, that makes this impossible, because I have to make a different video for almost every person on Earth. But the good news is the humans are so uninteresting. Right, so this is always a problem of communicating, is you've got to communicate to the individual nuances of psychology and intellectual understanding. How many Jeopardy questions can the other person answer? What do they really know about the world they live in? The truth. How much of what they have in their head is bullshit, and how much of it is scientifically correct or accurate? How many accurate notions of reality do they contain in their brain? And it's half of the equation. Half of the equation is me forming sentences, and half the equation is can the person catch the ball I threw? Am I throwing to a 2-year-old or a 22-year-old? Who's going to catch the ball? And there's people who are incompetent, and some of them are as incompetent as a moth. They might as well be a bug, because they have so little connections, and they have so little knowledge of reality. They're living in such a delusion. Like, some nutty Muslim, for example. But anyway, moving on. manipulate the world so they can, cover it with copies of them. Right, so it's the whole DNA argument that we're just, I mean, it's amazing when you think about, how many organisms are completely devoted to this purpose, and there's just nothing else they're doing. I mean, every leaf created is for the purpose of generating the seeds of the next version of the seed maker, and they're so, the circle is so tiny in terms of just recognizing how little extra there is. Okay, anything you'd call extra bits, lying in the sun, and some sort of enjoyable thing, and and so many lives are like that. I mean, there's mice that live 2 years. You just think of just the fact that how long it takes to get up to speed, to understand your environment, do all this stuff, and it's done. You're already completed your purpose just by doing lay your eggs. There's some species of fish that are like that too. It's just like I think they live like one season. They just, they live to lay eggs. They get enough food to lay their eggs and die, and that's it, over and over again. And so it's just eat, die, eat, die, eat, die. And there's just nothing else going on. And that's our heritage. Now, yeah, we've gone beyond it a bit, in terms of we've made our life more than just struggling to survive, and so we have the leisure time thing, and the time to do stuff that isn't related to surviving and all of that crap. But it's still a pretty burdensome life. I mean, people have to go out and work for 50 years, and yuck, it's pretty taxing, especially if the job sucks, which every job I had did. So I don't know if there's a job that doesn't suck, but I didn't have any of them. So, but anyway, moving on. Somewhere around here, maybe. Yeah, why not? On the hill. All those kind of advantages and bullshit that we. Right. So, so there's two sides to this whole thing of, and so you're coming from a perspective. You have an opinion of yourself as a winner, and how much of why you win is because of you got lucky. So the plants are competing with each other, and one of them, the seed falls on ground that's a foot higher than the ground the other seed fell on. And that's the reason why one of them's going to win and one of them's going to lose. It has nothing to do with their individual merits, how well they've evolved or any of that crap. It just has to do with where the wind blew. And so much of our lives are dictated by that bullshit, and that should be kind of obnoxious and irritating to everyone. Everybody should concede, hey, that's no way to play the game. I shouldn't be competing against, we shouldn't have a game, where advantages are all just about physical, or how big your feet are, or some stupid little thing that gives you an advantage, whether you have fingers long enough to play the piano, or some sort of rules like that. That sucks. It's another ugly part of life, is that winning and losing isn't a merit pay kind of game. You're not an asset to the universe, or the human race, or life on the planet, or any of that crap. You're yeah, so being fair to the facts, like I said, it wasn't for our delusions or our fantasies. We all make up justifications and defenses, and but the truth is no. We're all falling way short, and life itself is falling way short of sufficient efficiency. The price paid is just way too high for way too little, in terms of any legitimate thing that could be called a good function. There's so little good functioning. I mean, it's better not, I'm just saying from my perspective, I think it's better to have the capacity, yeah, so just an interesting question about whether it's better to know or not to know. Yeah, so for people individually, you might feel better, living in the maze. Um, it's all an attitude thing. Yeah, I mean, if you're a slave and you're stuck in slavery, it might be better not to be thinking about the politics of the slavery and just deal with the fact that you're a slave. But one could argue that one would rather be recognizing their role in a history, and that, whoa, there's going to be a destiny and a future, and that destiny and future will become completely dependent on stepping beyond the role and being a player. So I'm just sort of making the point that, yes, I'd rather be walking, even though it's a desert, even though, there are huge liabilities to walking the walls, the top of the walls of the maze. In terms of, it's harder to get any food, and it's harder to, lots of things you could, I mean, I could make some narrative about why, but it is the fact that knowledge comes with a burden. That it can be a downer, a bummer. But I'd rather, because then I still have, there's hope walking the walls of the maze. There's no hope in the maze. And that's the part where, I'd rather have some chance than no chance. And then I pay a price for having some chance. But it seems a lot of people don't care. They rather wallow in the mire and the mush. Modern mystic comes to mind, just because he keeps rephrasing philosophy to defend an idea. It's like that Daniel Dennett guy who knows we don't have free will, but he keeps talking, keeps trying to create compatibilist philosophy or some kind of bullshit that'll give somebody some notion that it's okay to think you do, though. I mean, some sort of bullshit. It's just bullshit because he thinks people need the bullshit. Just yuck. Alright, where was I? Well, we'll jump to here. Of bullshit. Yeah. So it can continue to think it's accomplishing something. And it's going somewhere and it's going to do something. When, logically you can understand it's not going to do anything. You're not going to show up. You can't make anything out of the game. The game is really only playable by the desperate and the lonely and the, to really enjoy the meal, you have to be hungry, and you have to earn your hunger too, like everything else. And so if you have any passion, you have it for probably negative reasons, because you had a hard life and because you had bad circumstances. You had and that's the reason why you have any passion for anything anyway. So, you can't even gain your ability to enjoy winning, unless you spent some time in a loser circle. Unless you've been, to hunger. You just can't. You can't play the game aggressively unless you're aggressively needy, and you're not going to get that way. Being comfortable. You're not going to be needy being comfortable. Being well fed, you're not going to need it. Justifying, there's no initial fact that said a good idea. No, that never happened. There was never the good idea. So the universe doesn't run on good ideas. It runs on just random ideas, you could argue, sort of randomized, synthetically random, and doesn't have any intelligence. There's no filter for the ideas, so it's, it just initiates a process, and there's no qualification that the process is a good one. And the truth that'll never change is that the process of creating a DNA molecule that makes test organisms that it disposes of in just insane volumes of negative outcomes to create the positive of a successful procreator, it's just too stupid. You wouldn't pass a reasonable filter. as, oh yeah, this is a good idea. Let's torture a bunch of things. Let's kill a bunch of kids, so one will survive. I mean, it's that bad. To a psycho killer when they're 80 years old, or they can be one at 8 years old. Yeah, so you can, always everything has to be measured over the whole term of its existence, from the beginning to the end, and that's what you have to judge, is the whole life of a car, for example. Was it a good car? Well, it's, it could have killed people 3 days after it was driven out of the showroom, or it could kill them, 20 years later. That's the story. Story isn't this little moment in time. The first half of your life isn't your whole life. So it's you have to measure performance over the entirety of something's function, and over the history of life so far on planet Earth, the performance is dismally bad. Me up. It's a pretty simple answer. I mean, a tiny amount of Mozart, and a tiny amount of anything beautiful in just a gigantic ocean of squirming, writhing pain and misery. So I mean, there's a value equation, and that people or so. Yeah, so that's what it's always going to be, just an equation. It's just going to be a mathematical challenge to figure out this value exchange. And the future is going to be stuck with the same basic truth about it. It's not going to be able to change anything. Human beings will be able to, if they aren't personally experiencing torture, they're going to be able to understand it. Even if they don't have to personally endure any of it, they'll be able to imagine it and recognize that, shit, that's a terribly high price to pay for having this conversation. I mean, growing intelligence and having it sit here and say, what does it mean to be alive? Well, it means you've been a dupe and just a sucker, and you're just a robot, and you're just talking shit. So fuck it. You're not going anywhere, or not doing anything, because you are the menace. You are the problem, not the solution. You only fix what you break by being here. That fact will not die. It will linger and linger. As long as there are brains to contemplate existence, they will be stuck with that fact. Too high price to pay for too little functionality. Cleaning up the mess you make is not good enough. No, just as much value as whatever it is you're getting. And so, yeah, that's sort of my zero-sum argument. And right, so that's in there. Yeah, that's all we can do. The best finish, the best outcome is to just clean up the mess you made. And we can't even do that. As individuals, it's really hard to even just do that. Let alone clean up other people's messes or clean up history's messes. No chance. It ain't gonna happen. So all you can do is add more, red numbers. All you can do is make it worse by perpetuating it. You can't clean up the history, and the future offers no hope. There's no profit to be made. All you can do is slow down the amount you're losing. And you still can't stop the losses. So you're always going to be bleeding. And there's no point in doing that. There's no point in defending the creation of a negative for a no value positive. In the sense that your only positives are you prevented a bunch of negative you didn't do. Oh, I didn't murder a bunch of people, therefore I did a good thing. I didn't rape that woman. Yeah, what a huge profit there. I prevented a rape. No, you can't take credit for that. You know, making less of a mess is not, I'm winning. No, 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 no. Anyway, so that's the video pretty much. And that's this video pretty much. And yeah. So I'm dealing with these kind of issues. Like, you know, how do you talk to everybody? You know, can't do it. People don't even speak the same language, for fuck's sake, and let alone when they do speak the language, they, you know, are living in a completely different reality. I mean, the jar they're looking out through has all kinds of distortions in the glass, and, you know, you have to keep, you know, you got to explain all of that. Why, hey, how come I can see what you can't see? You know, it's obvious to me what that is. Why is it not obvious to you? God is a fable. I mean, it's so obvious. Why haven't you figured that out? What's holding you back? And it really is holding you back. I mean, what's keeping you in that little bus of just too stupid? Why are you staying in that too stupid bus? And who wants to waste time on all that kind of garbage? I mean, you shouldn't even have to do that. I shouldn't have to, you know, argue arguments that have already been made and decisively made, in the sense that there's no reasonable rejection of the evidence presented. So anyway, all right, that's enough of a video and such. So, till the next time, and such, this has been donotgod.com GoogleIsEvil video presentation, and such. Yeah, that's enough. Bleh.